So when the company started out, presumably there wasn't a large budget for R&D, but you obviously shifted to that, and there is a very intense R&D focus in the company. At what point did that change?
Yeah, look, it probably started after a few years where we saw there were products that we could develop. So we started to put money aside for R&D. We've always been reasonably constrained because we didn't have enough capital. So certainly we have more capital, we can do more R&D, and that's a pretty important part of our business, really.
Yeah, I bet. R&D is a bit of a buzzword for a lot of companies, and the extent to which they actually do R&D differs from different companies. But for you guys, it really is at the heart of what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's very important. You can't get a product without doing proper R&D, proper clinical research. Like, we really have to do the studies to prove our product works. Very, very important. So they're clinical studies with patients, and that does cost money.
Yeah, and if you are going to compete with global pharma companies, you really have to do R&D, don't you? I mean, you have to own the product, all the elements of it.
Yeah, look, that's certainly pretty important. We've had a lot of experience with R&D, and it's something we're actually pretty good at. We've done a number of good clinical studies. We've often done the hard clinical studies, sometimes that maybe other people have been afraid to do, where we've done a design that emphatically proves something works or it doesn't. So we've done it and actually got a good result. So that's important.
Tell us some success stories. Now, one of the ones I'm really interested in is the piece that was in the New York Times and the New England Journal of Medicine around cold and flu products, phenylephrine. Tell us about that.
Yeah, look, that was a pretty interesting story, I guess. We were doing a study and we found a result that was almost unbelievable or very surprising. And I guess the first thing would have been, well, it must be wrong. But when we looked at it carefully, we found out actually it wasn't wrong. So there was an error in all the world's cold and flu formulations, where previously these two drugs had been combined, phenylephrine and paracetamol, and everyone assumed there wasn't a drug interaction, but we actually found by accident that there was. So yeah, it's an example of how a small company can find something that really should have been found, but hadn't been. And it was very positive. I mean, we got that study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is the world's #1 medical journal. So even from a research perspective, it was very satisfying, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about R&D for your company. It's not just about creating brand new products, isn't it? It's also about improving existing products.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's pretty important. Essentially, people think about new chemical entities or new molecules. What you see is there's a lot of old drugs that really you can improve a lot by doing further development on, and that's really the area that we focused on. To do a new chemical entity really costs a huge amount of money to do the research, like literally, $1 billion. However, we can improve old and existing drugs and actually make them much, much better by spending reasonably modest sums of money. Like, you can do a clinical study with a couple hundred patients. So certainly that's something that can definitely be done, by a company like ours.
And when you say a company like ours, I think what you mean is a company that is a bit more nimble, a bit more agile, and looks for opportunities maybe that the big pharma companies don't necessarily see. Yeah,
look, I mean, it's happening nowadays. Actually, a lot of the good ideas are actually coming out of smaller companies. Look, being small actually isn't a disadvantage as long as one has enough capital, money to do the studies. You can do them quicker, probably more easily than big pharma.
Yeah. So to get your products licensed in countries around the world, you obviously have to meet certain standards that the regulators set. Now, those standards are the same whether you're a massive big pharma company or a company like AFT. How do you manage to do that? How do you meet those standards? How do you do all the trial work globally based here?
Yeah, look, it's not that much of a problem. I mean, we have a very good clinical research community here, but also we do go to other places, to centres of excellence, like we've conducted studies in the United States, we conducted studies in Russia, conducted studies in the Middle East, so really that's part of it. I mean, the world nowadays is probably smaller, travel, it's easy to get to. We do have our own trial team, we have our own research nurse, we have our own statistician we use. So a certain number of elements we do in-house to keep the costs down, but we also work with people basically around the globe.